Ich freue mich, dass Sie, liebe Zuhörerinnen und Zuhörer, diese neue Meikes Raumzeit-Episode genießen mit einem besonderen Gast und einem sehr wichtigen Thema. Wir werden sprechen über die Future of Work und über Trainings und Skills, die wir in Zukunft mit AI und AI-Tools, die mehr und mehr unseren beruflichen Alltag natürlich beeinflussen werden, benötigen. Und da mein heutiger Gast im Podcast Englisch spricht, werde ich auch jetzt auf Englisch wechseln. Und I'm happy to welcome you, James McQuivey von Forrester. Welcome. My first question would have been around that exactly. Future of work. Big word, big, let me say cloud of it as well. But where are we heading now with as well AI in the picture?
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about it?
Absolutely. It's a challenge because when we say future of work, everyone is immediately interested because they all know the future of work is going to be different than what it has been in the past. But then the challenge is we have a hard time describing all of the future. There's too much. There's some of it that's uncertain. There's some of it we can clearly see is going to evolve. We know, for example, that everyone is going to be using AI tools in every part of the organization. But which tool, when they're going to use them, what does it mean for their workload? Are they just going to be twice as effective at what they already do? Or are they going to have to do twice as much? I mean, those are all very valid questions about the future of work. And that's just related to AI. We have other questions about working virtual versus in person, which the pandemic really accelerated. But that's always been a challenge for the future of work. Or people have thought, well, if the best possible talent is in a different city than our headquarters, well, should that be an obstacle to hiring that person and working with them? And if it's not an obstacle, what tools should we, again, it's going to come back to the technology. What technology, what cameras, what microphones, what software are we going to put in front of people so they can be effective in the role that we're paying them to do? So there's so much in the future of work that's ahead of us. And I think what's paradoxical about it is that I have said now several times, the technology this, the technology that. But in the end, if the humans don't use the technology, it doesn't matter how good the technology is.
Yeah.
And that's where we are right now. And so we're spending a lot of our time talking about human readiness for these technological changes.
Yeah. What are the obstacles? What is it that you meet within this human readiness?
Yeah.
Many people probably that are scared, that feel it's a threat, that feel maybe overly motivated. You have all different shapes of how people react to it.
And I think the thing to be aware of is that the concerns that people have about technology, AI specifically, I just shared that 42% of people in a survey that we recently executed say that they're concerned about the long-term threat to society from AI. Well, they're not wrong. And that is a rational concern and an emotional concern.
Yeah.
And the same is true when people are worried about whether they'll have a job tomorrow because of AI. That is a rational and an emotional concern. And so we have to be ready to hear those concerns. We have to understand the basis for those concerns, and we have to show that we have a plan for how we're going to address those concerns, both for the impact we have on society and the impact we have on your jobs. It's very, very hard to go to someone and say, we want you to work with this AI tool because it's going to change the way we work. And once you've trained it, we won't need you anymore. I mean, how can you say that out loud? How does that make that person feel? Does it make them want to participate?
Yeah.
No, they don't want to participate.
No. And especially if you have the communication of whether companies implement AI tools, there's a lot of be more efficient, more effective. And words that are actually triggering more of those worries and threats.
Yes.
Probably.
Oh, because when you hear, someone lays off, or has 10,000 redundant employees in a big global layoff, and they talk about efficiency.
Yeah.
The next time the organization says, we want to be more efficient, everyone looks around and says, so who's getting laid off next? And that's, again, a rational concern. This is not people being, overly anxious. This is very, very real.
Yeah.
So for me, the thing I keep telling companies is the future of your organization and getting the humans excited about the future is when you show them how they play a role in that future. And so this can be anything from, hey, you used to be able to do, this amount of work in the past, and when you're accelerated or augmented by AI, you're going to be able to do twice as much, okay. But the better thing is, and in that process, we're going to take out the most frustrating parts because AI will do the most frustrating parts for you, and you can just do the interesting parts, creating the ideas, discussing the implications of that new plan or that campaign that you're working on, really doing the things that humans do best. Because even though we see AI tools doing amazing things with being able to communicate in what seem like human ways, AI cannot, and I maintain personally, never will be able to do the thing that two humans can do, where they're talking about something and they, as a result of their conversation, create a new idea that neither one of them knew before that moment. The result of their conversation, it emerged and it shaped them and it changed the way they approach the future. That's not going to happen in a conversation with an AI tool.
Now maybe a more provocative question is now AI giving us a new opportunity to look at it this way and to talk about kind of how are we taking our employees, people, the human side on the journey? How do we start all together? Because change has always been in companies. We've always had companies have been facing difficult times on the market. We always had like ups and downs of new technologies coming. And now we talk about how do we actually, what's next? Is that not now maybe as well a new opportunity, or what changed in that way?
So I will say, yes, it is a new opportunity, but I acknowledge the fact that all of these things have happened in some way, shape before. I'm old enough to remember when companies were first introducing laptops into their computing environments, and what does that mean? And can people take them home? And what happens if they break? And those are very real questions. But that was a very slow change. The change that we're going through now is faster. And it's also interesting to consider that it affects everyone. So when I remember getting into mobile, and this is mobile, the mobile revolution started really about 15 years ago. I mean, the iPhone's been out for 18 years, but the App Store not for 17 years, and the Android didn't really become a competitor until 15 years ago. So 15 years, let's say 2010. The iPad was invented that year. That's the year where suddenly people are full of these technologies that are changing their personal lives. But at work, only changed your life if you worked on the mobile team. You weren't maybe you used your iPad to send email. That's not changing your work life.
No.
Now we're talking about tools that you can use at home and at work, and you can use in every role. There's never been a technology change quite like that, where the technology was useful to the person answering the phone, the person designing the product, now different versions of the tools, the different versions of the technologies. Yes, but it's the same underlying technology. Everything is becoming more conversational in terms of its intelligence, and that makes it accessible. I don't have to be an expert in software user interfaces to access some of these tools. And that's very powerful. And I think what happens is people today know that as customers already. We're already seeing search traffic to Google go down, and we're seeing people use ChatGPT for search or Perplexity for search. And that tells you that people are already seeing the value of this in their personal lives. So they show up at work and they say, all right, how are we going to use these tools here? And the tools that I want to use, you won't let me use. And you want me to use these other tools, and I don't understand why. So there's just this very different company-wide change that's happening very quickly. And all of the leaders in the organization need to solve these problems very quickly.
You introduced the artificial intelligence quotient, AIQ, in that within that circumstance. Can you please tell more what is it and what does it mean exactly?
Well, of course, in the world of intelligence testing, people have used the IQ, or the intelligence quotient. It's just a way to measure someone's relative intelligence, right? So we're not trying to measure someone's relative intelligence, but we are trying to measure sort of how ready they are to use artificial intelligence tools. And it's really readiness. It's not about whether you're a good person or a bad person. It's not about whether you're a good technology user or a bad technology user. It's just how ready are you? How aware are you of what it can do? How aware are you of the risks that it brings? What have you started to experiment with? And do you feel confident in what you've started to experiment? And the whole purpose of the AIQ is to say, okay, where are you today? Because in the future, we want you all to be much more advanced in your AIQ readiness. And I'll tell you, we've had this out for now about a year and a half. And in that year and a half, we worked with hundreds of companies to assess, some team or in some cases, hundreds of people in the organization. And what we're finding is really encouraging, but it's also a warning. And I'll tell you the encouraging part first. People can rapidly increase their AIQ.
Okay.
It's very good to see. It only takes a little bit of focused effort from the organization. It takes a little bit of planning. Be specific in why you're introducing people to these tools and how you train them, right? So that's mostly what we do right now is we help people understand how to augment or increase people's AIQ. The risk part is that, and I'm holding my fingers up in the air here, but as some people move quickly ahead, the people in the back aren't moving forward as fast as the people ahead. So the distance between the leaders and the laggards is actually getting wider. And that's, from an organization's perspective, that's a risk because you now have a much broader range of abilities, potential misunderstandings of the role AI. You really need to get the people who are lower in their AIQ comfortable quickly so that they can start to generate the same energy and forward motion as their more advanced peers. Because their more advanced peers, the thing about them is they're basically teaching themselves how to do this. They love it. It's fun. They're at home using it for their personal lives. They're making progress regardless of what you do as an organization. But the people who are in the back of the line, if you will, they're only going to make progress if you give them a structured and meaningful approach to making that progress. And so it's really on you as an organization to close that gap.
Yes. You were saying it's like an assessment that you're doing. Can you tell us more about the different dimensions that are part of this assessment?
Yeah, so we base this off of some work that we've been doing for about a decade that my colleague JP Gounder on my team has been working on something called the robotics quotient, which was something we designed actually to help people learn how to work with robots and automated tools. But some of the same concepts apply. There's, you have to be mentally aware of what that tool, whether it's a robot or an AI tool, is capable of. You have to become confident in your ability to interact with that tool, or, in the old world, a robot. And what we have found is that some of the same things that apply to the robotics quotient apply to the artificial intelligence quotient, or the AIQ. And it's things as simple as, what's your understanding of what's happening inside that tool? Like, are you aware that it's a language-based tool, that there isn't an actual personality there? Do you understand how it generates its intelligence?
Yeah.
Because that will give you a sense of its capabilities and its limits. So you got to start with understanding. The second dimension that we get to is just hard skills. Do you know how to engineer a prompt to get the right kind of answer? Do you know how to question the results that come back so that you can say, oh, that doesn't sound right. I'm not going to take that answer and just copy and paste it into the document that I send to our clients. I'm going to look at it and say, that doesn't make sense. But are you aware that that's part of the process? That's a hard skill that you have to learn.
Yeah.
We have soft skills and inclinations as a third dimension. And this is more just your general, it includes including your motivation for whether you want to learn these things, which it turns out most people do. Most people are excited about learning these things, even if they have the specific concerns that are valid. And so we're trying to help people be aware of, I have hard skills I have to learn. Hard skills are usually the lowest score that most people and most teens have. Soft skills, though, can be high. You can be highly motivated. You can be curious and interested. That's good. Then the last dimension is privacy, ethics, and risk. And that's just a place where we put all the things that, as you're going to do these things, you need to be aware of the possible risks, the boundaries that we have to place on it as an organization, the things that we need to not ask the AI to do for us because it would be against the law or against the privacy policy of our organization, or it would put your colleagues or your customers at risk. And you do need to learn those things. Yeah. We don't usually start training with those things. We try to show the promise and then say, by the way, for the promise to be fulfilled, we have to do it responsibly. But those four dimensions between understanding, hard skills, soft skills, and privacy, ethics, and risk, it gives you a good picture of where someone's strengths and readiness are.
I heard it today, reading and preparing for this interview, first time about this AIQ and actually about that, making an assessment within the team. Why do we not hear companies or managers more talk about training and giving the ability to the team, actually to the employees, to learn and be AI ready?
I have to admit, I am so surprised that that's the case. We have found that very little training is being done. And it's even disappointing to the makers of the tools. The AI vendors are saying, look, I sold a big deal with this big company, and then they didn't train. They say, well, we spent the budget on the seat licenses, and we decided not to spend the budget on the training. No. You can't just give someone a license. Their understanding isn't where it needs to be. Their hard skills aren't where they need to be without training. And the thing is, the training, it turns out, because AI interfaces are usually so intuitive, a little bit of training can go a long way, especially if you structure the way your training feeds into more organic conversation among peers in the organization. So it doesn't take a lot. But think about it. Most leaders, most managers, they're not learning and development experts. That's HR's job.
Yeah.
They just think HR will come up with the training module that we need, and they don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But you need to now, as a leader, be more actively involved in the training and development of this AI skill for your people.
Yeah.
And one reason is you're the only person in the organization who knows how your people will use the AI to do their jobs. HR doesn't know that. HR doesn't know the specific things that your team is going to use those tools for.
Yeah.
So you need to be very involved in that training process.
You're bringing up a very, for me, interesting or important point, is that actually the specific use of AI for your team or your role.
Yeah.
How is it actually then possible for a company to come up with training plans for like all the different uses of AI that you might have?
I'll tell you the secret. The secret is you ask an AI tool to do it. We have done this. We have gone into a team. We've said, what are the tasks that your team can do or needs to do, and how could they be easier? And then we've gone to the AI tool and said, construct a training session for people who do this job and have to accomplish this in Excel. And what would you recommend that they learn to do on AI? Give them and we have to structure it because we know how to prompt engineer. So we give it a prompt of create a 45-minute training module that explains this and shows this and does this. And it will actually give you a customized training module. And if it's a deep research module, like if it's 4.5 ChatGPT or if it's Gemini's new 2.5, it will actually come back to you with very specific links to like, go watch this on LinkedIn. Now go try this in Excel. So as much as I want to say I'm out there helping people develop these curricula, we don't have time to do the thousands of different training programs that our clients see. But with a few minutes of coaching, I can get your leaders to develop the specific training you need.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. The time we live in is a remarkable time.
But I guess getting that right, that in the end, it should be the managers and leaders itself that actually come up for their teams.
They really
because they know the best.
They're the only ones that know. They know who their people are and what they're capable of, and they know what tasks they need to accomplish. Yeah. No one else does.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more on what you're seeing? How is an AIQ or not a bad AIQ actually influence the success or the failure of AI initiatives?
Yeah. Well, with an AI initiative, you're looking for how quickly can we roll something out and then have demonstrated success. We have a lot of CFOs who are asking for ROI. They're saying, we gave you this money to do this. What's happened? Yeah. And it's very, very hard to prove that, especially if you haven't trained with specific outcomes in mind. How do you measure those outcomes when you didn't even train for those outcomes? So, what we're trying to do is get rapid success.
Yeah.
Okay, and those are two different things. I could quickly enable everyone with the tool, but have it result in as much mayhem as magic. So we look at, mayhem and magic are the two, and I don't know that the word mayhem translates very effectively to most people, but it's just, chaos versus magic. And if we move too quickly, that we create more chaos than magic, then we're in trouble. But if we move so slowly because we're so careful and we're not training adequately and we only give a few licenses to a few departments, then we're not going to get to the magic. We don't create chaos, but we don't get to the magic. So what we want to do in our AIQ is we want to quickly assess how fast can we move. And the once we figure out who's high on AIQ, we make them the trainers, whether formal or not, of the low. So one of the examples that we often give is what's called a promptathon, which some organizations do this regularly. Some have never heard of it, where you have a meeting with the team and you say, here's the problem we're trying to do with AI. Here's the tool we're going to use. We're going to break you into teams and we're going to have you talk out loud about how you would solve this problem and then try it again and then come back and share what you learned with the rest of the organization. Well, what happens is all the people who are high in AIQ are giving their best examples, and everyone in the group who is low is learning very, very rapidly. So we can use AIQ to figure out how fast can we move, and to
Yeah.
make sure that we can share from the high to the low
Yeah.
as rapidly as possible.
Yeah. So is it like kind of pointing out or creating AI ambassadors within them as well in the companies?
Yes,
Sort of, or
and some
trainers
people will
with
call
them.
them ambassadors, some
Sure.
people will call
Yeah.
them champions, whatever the case
Yeah.
might be. I think the larger the organization, the more it makes sense to have that. But whether
Yeah.
it's a formal role
Yeah.
or an informal role, I mean, if I have a team
Yeah.
of 20 people and I just want to make those 20 people as good as possible, I might find the 2 or 3 who are doing all the experimentation. Instead of making them
Yeah.
formal ambassadors, I would just start my next team meeting by saying, hey, well, Janet was saying the other day that she used AI to do this interesting thing. Janet, will you share that with everybody else, and let's talk about it?
Yeah.
And very important, as a manager, I need to listen to Janet's example and show that I didn't know that either. It's like the reason I had Janet tell you this was because I never would have done this. Janet was the only person who thought of this.
Yeah.
And because if I try to make it seem like it's so obvious that this was the right thing to do, and Janet and I know it, and the rest of you don't, it's so much more effective to demonstrate to the team, I'm learning too.
Yeah.
Janet said this thing, and I thought, holy, I didn't know you could do this. Will you tell everyone else? And I need to preserve that sense that I'm a learner.
Yeah.
Because the more I show that I'm a learner, everyone else thinks it's okay to learn.
Yeah.
We don't all have to pretend to be experts. We're all
Yeah.
learning, and that's a good place to start for a team.
Yeah, because that would have been the question. What can I do not to lose the ones that are maybe low, actually, then that they're not kind of feeling even more threatened, maybe, to actually speak up.
Yeah. Well, one thing to do is to make sure that you are aware of their particular job challenges. So if, in a team and people have similar roles, but maybe the person who's lower has a specific challenge, and you think, I wonder if I could ask Janet to come to a team meeting and present on something that's going to be helpful to Susan. And then Susan, who, up until now has been a little resistant and is not interested and isn't motivated, will suddenly say, oh, well, that's actually easier than what I'm doing now. That process that I do now where I copy and paste files from Excel into PDFs and then format them and send them. It's like, an AI could just do that for me? Oh, suddenly Susan, she doesn't have to care about AI. This is the point. It's a little bit like, I don't know, it's a little bit like electricity. I don't have to believe in the power of electricity. I just have to know that when I plug something in, it works. And it's the same with AI. I don't have to believe in the power of AI. I just have to know that it's going to work for me. That I need something, and when I plug it in, so to speak, it works. And that's where we are.
Yeah. So I guess if I'm taking like a wrap up, it's actually in a company or a team, when you start on the AI journey, you should actually start as well on the training of the AI skills. That's everything around it. It goes together. You have AI strategy, you have the AI initiative, and you have the AI training.
The worst possible scenario is where you worked with your vendors to figure out the price of the seat licenses you want, and then you show up, and the first time you're talking to your employees is after you've already paid for the vendor contract.
Yeah.
Your employees should be in the vendor process.
Yeah.
They should be going to the demos. You should have a session where you say, here's what the vendor showed me. Will this work for us? Do you guys think this is going to work?
Yeah.
Can you see how you will use this?
Yeah.
Because then that ensures that they all understand this is for them. It's to make them successful. The number of times someone rolls out a tool, the decision's already been made, the contract has already been signed, the money's already been sent, and the people who are receiving the tool are saying like, how is that even going to help me? Why am I doing this? Why are you making me pretend that this is useful when it's not? Involve the people so that the technology strategy and the human strategy start at the same time.
Yeah. So if we're going back to the first question with how does the future of work look like? We don't know. I don't have an answer yet. Nevertheless, but we can have the employees, all the people in the company shape the future of work with your tools.
I don't even need to answer that because that's exactly what I would have said is if the people and the technology start together, it shapes how you deploy the technology to make it more human and makes the technology more likely to be successful, which then makes the humans more likely to continue to be successful. And 6 months from now, they'll say, now that we've been doing this, there's an even better thing. And they will start suggesting ways to improve your AI experience as an organization overall. The human plus technology. So when we say it, we say human plus AI. It's not AI plus human. It's human first. And that's the solution.
Yeah. Now, as you mentioned it, you just brought it up. We talk about AIQ, but there is the technology in general. There's a tech Q that you mentioned actually. We should make it even broader, the topic.
Well, this is what's happened. This is what's happened in our work with clients over the last several years. Is that as we've said, there's an AIQ, and people have said, now that we've done this, it's helpful, but it's only helpful specific to AI. And they said, we realize we're asking for a lot of technology change all around the place. New devices, new locations to use technology, new protocols for signing into things, should we step back and say, how ready are we for change generally in our technology? Yeah. And the answer to that question is yes, we absolutely have to do that. And so we've just released in the last 2 weeks, JP Gounder, the same head of our RQ and AIQ research, has just released TCQ, which is our Technology Change Quotient. And the Technology Change Quotient backs up a little bit. It zooms out to say, let's talk about readiness generally for technology on the individual's part, the organizational part, my manager's part. Let's do a little broader assessment. Yeah. And it's been remarkable. It's one of Forrester's most read reports in the last 2 weeks because clients are hungry for this. They need it.
Wow. No, I really like it. I hope it keeps up and if companies implement it now, all the cues and the assessments within the
all the cues.
Speak of the cue.
Yeah, thank you. I used to.
No, I thank you very much for that interview. I've really enjoyed diving with you into all the future of work, and thanks for sharing your insights with us.
Of course. Thank you, Meike.